Hello. So I have irritated this eye somehow. Don't know how. I mean, makeup, right? It has to have been my makeup. But yeah, so if I'm fiddling, that's why. What was happening? Oh, he was gonna show us what was going on in the basement. Gambling, right? My anger still lingers when I follow Gray down to the basement, feeling both betrayed and confused by his confession. With a deep breath, I try to push it down, content to let it simmer until I find out exactly what it is he and his friends do down here. It feels important that I know, not just because this is my building and Gray is renting the basement from me, but because we've been growing closer and closer. And I need to know the kind of man that Gray Johnson really is. Gray pushes the door open and flicks on the light, illuminating the small room. Looking around now, it still seems the same as it's always been. There's nothing out of the ordinary, nothing to give me a clue as to the activities this room has seen. So, what do you do down here? I turn to Gray, my hands resting on my hips impatiently. He ducks his head as he walks over to the bar and leans his elbows back against it before he finally sets his eyes on me. It's simple, he says flatly. We play games, right? Gray, I sigh, growing tired of the charade. Just not the type of games I've led you to believe. He cuts in again before I can say more. I wave a hand in front of me as a sign for him to continue talking, and I can tell by his posture that he's hesitant. After clearing his throat softly, he speaks again. Well, we play cards. Poker, mostly. Poker? That doesn't sound so bad, I say. I've never played poker before, but I know it's only a card game. How bad can it be? Well, there's money involved. A lot of it. The winner takes all, and the losers come back the next night, and the night after that, and the night after that, Gray explains. And at once I know why he was so reluctant to tell me the truth. It's an underground gambling ring, and I'm guessing he doesn't have the kind of licenses required for such a thing, seeing as how he's running it out of a basement of all places. I raise an eyebrow at the setup, scanning the bar and the large table in the middle of the room with a new perspective. So you're scamming people out of their money? I ask with an edge to my voice. From what I know of gambling, it's dangerous, and it can ruin people's lives in more ways than one. They come here of their own free will. Gray shrugs it off, and they can leave anytime they like, provided they've cleared their debts. It sounds illegal, I say, wrinkling my nose distastefully. It is, but all the best things are. Gray steps closer to me. I ignore his closeness, shoving my hands in the back pockets of my jeans and backing up. What do you get out of it? I continue, still curious about the setup he's got going on here. Players pay to be at the table, he explains. So you make a pretty good living from this kind of business then, I conclude. I do all right, he says with a kind of smile that tells me he does much more than just all right. Although I could be doing better, that's where Ivan comes in, he adds. I let out a heavy breath, having forgotten that one small detail for just a moment. I knew there had to be a good reason you kept him around. Gray huffs a small laugh as if to agree. Personally, I can't think of many reasons one would have to keep a man like Ivan around at all. He seems more like a liability than anything else. All the money that passes through here is untaxed, which, as you already guessed, is illegal, Gray explains. Ivan takes care of that side of the business. He launders the money, makes it look legitimate, while I run the games and bring in the big players. This system has been working for us for years, and in the end, we both walk away with our pockets full, he finishes. Something in my stomach turns sour. I have a weird feeling about what Gray is doing here, and especially Ivan's involvement in it all. My first instinct is to tell him to shut it down, but I hold my tongue and think it through a little more. I'm no stranger to the wrong side of the law, but all of this is happening in my building, putting my name and business at risk. Then again, Gray has been doing it for long enough without getting caught, and I trust him to keep me out of trouble. When it comes down to it, the situation leaves me torn. I'm starting to think that I should increase your rent, I say, circling the table and giving him a sly smile. A surcharge for the illegal activities that go on down here. He chuckles quietly, shoving his hands in his pockets and looking over at me. I'll pay whatever you want, Gray says, and by the look on his face, I can tell he means it. I shake my head, a sign that I'm only joking. My business has been doing well enough on its own, and I wouldn't feel right taking any more of his dirty money. With a sigh, I drum my fingers against the top of the table. I'm glad he told me about this, even if the truth is a little unsettling. Will you show me how to play? I ask, suddenly giving him my best and brightest smile. If I'm going to let him continue running this business of his down here, then I might as well learn more about how it works. Gray folds his arms over his chest and pins me with a firm stare. All right, what will you bet? I hesitate. Can't we just play without bets? That's not how it works down here, he says with a shake of his head. I shrug, not willing to budge. I'm not wasting my money on a game. A smile breaks out across his face, and for a moment I wonder if that was the wrong thing to say. Strip poker it is, he grins, Gray. You're on. Get ready to strip, I say, meeting him with a smirk of my own. You don't know how to play. You can't say that. I bet he thought I'd back down. The subtle arch of his eyebrow tells me that much, but he also seems pleasantly surprised that I haven't. I like your confidence, he says with a challenge in his voice, but I have to warn you, I'm extremely good at this game. Why doesn't that surprise me? I tease back, taking a seat at the table. He winks at me because I'm amazing at everything. It's my turn to raise an eyebrow, letting out a small laugh at the sheer amount of confidence the man possesses. Let's see if you're still as cocky when you're walking out of here naked as the day you were born, I smirk. Gray smacks a hand against the top of the table, grinning from ear to ear. Sounds like my kind of fun. Let's play. We're gonna lose. He procures a pack of cards from behind the bar, shuffling them between his hands before he saunters over to take a seat across the table from me. We'll start off with 3-card poker. It's the easiest to learn, he declares. The rules are simple. If I have a better hand than you, then I win, and you have to remove a piece of clothing you bet. He gives me a meaningful look. Though you can quit anytime you like, I'll understand if you want out. I smile quietly to myself. While it's nice of him to make me feel comfortable, the fact that he assumes I'll let him win so easily is amusing. And if I have a better hand, then I get to choose for you, I counter. We'll see if you get that far, he winks. I make a face at him and he chuckles, dealing out the cards between us. My heart is fluttering in my chest, both nervous and excited for the game. I'm not quite sure what I'm getting myself into, but I've come too far to back down now, and whatever doubts I'm having are slowly fluttering away into nothingness. My gaze lingers on Gray, on his arms, his chest, his shoulders, and I have to admit to myself that I wouldn't mind seeing more of what's beneath his clothes. You've already seen him in his underwear. Am I crazy? Without the hives this time. You've also seen him topless without the hives. He suddenly looks up to find me staring at him. The look he gives me shows that he's thinking much the same thing. I'm sure you'd love nothing more than to rip my clothes off, Valkii, but we've got a game to get through first, he teases. So what are you waiting for? I say cheekily in return, picking up my cards. Gray swipes his cards from the table, but he doesn't look at them right away. Instead, he continues to smile at me in that way that makes my skin warm and my pulse quicken. I was going to suggest we start with a practice round, but now I don't think I will, he says, his voice low and amused. Suit yourself, I shrug, trying my best to appear nonchalant. Finally, Gray studies his cards a moment or two before looking at me from over the top of them and saying, I bear my left shoe. Your shoe? I exclaim, a small laugh escaping me. Well, it's the first round. Can't be betting my pants right away, unless you want me to, he smirks. I mean, I wouldn't say no to the removal of his pants. However, I understand you would want to bet something low effort for the first few rounds. All right, your shoe it is, I say with a sensible nod. Now it's your turn, Gray continues. Look at your hand and see if you have any of the following. He proceeds to list the type of cards I might have, and as he talks, I spot a pair of queens and a 3 within my hand. If you think your hand will be better than mine, then you can match my bet or raise it to, for example, 2 shoes, he explains. If your hand isn't particularly good, then you can fold, and neither of us lose a thing. But that's not very fun, is it? He sits back in his chair and waits for my decision, completely at ease, with that lazy grin spreading at the corners of his mouth. I look at my cards again, deciding what to do. From what Gray had explained, a queen is a high card, but I only have 2 of them. 3 would be better. I can possibly win this round with what I have, but it all depends on Gray's hand. Finally, I make my choice. I'll meet your wager of a left shoe. Staying in the game, huh? You're brave, Gray teases. Let's just do this. Alright, at the same time, he instructs. We both lay our cards flat on the table, and I glance over at Gray's hand, feeling the smile slowly slide from my face. He beat me. Better luck next time, he chuckles at the crestfallen look on my face. Now I believe you owe me a shoe. I thought you were only kidding when you said no practice rounds, I protest. What are you, chicken? He laughs, adding a few chicken noises in for effect. Buck, buck. Okay, fine, I grumble a little as I slip off my shoe and kick it aside. Gray chuckles quietly, and I can tell that he's having way too much fun with this. The next few rounds go much the same way, and I find myself losing my other shoe, both socks, and then my shirt, leaving me in my bra and jeans while Gray still sits there fully clothed. You must be cheating, I say dejectedly as I finish adding my shirt to the pile. Let me deal this time. Be my guest, Gray says as he hands over the deck. I take it from him, shuffling the cards thoroughly before dealing them out. This time when I look at my hand, I feel the corners of my mouth twitch ever so slightly. I'll fold. Yeah, because you gave yourself away, girl. I'll fold, Gray says abruptly, putting his cards face down on the table. God, he's so boring. Like, you're fully clothed, dude. Like, just take the L. What? Why? Because you've got a winning hand. You are cheating, I burst out. It's not about cheating, he tells me calmly as he sits forward in his seat. It's not even so much about the game, it's about knowing how to read people. I don't understand. You're new to poker, so you couldn't have known, but every time you look at your hand, you give away subtle indicators. I watch Gray as he speaks, seeing how he mimics my expression. When you have a bad hand, you frown slightly. When you have a good one, your mouth twitches, and when you're unsure, that usually means your cards are bad too, he chuckles softly. That sounds a lot like cheating to me, I pout unhappily. He shakes his head at me, amused. I'll play my hand if that makes you feel better. Once again, we lay down our cards, and it looks like Gray was right. I finally won a round, and he's finally lost his first item of clothing. Too bad it's only a shoe. Let's keep going, I say, my competitiveness getting the better of me as I take back the cards and shuffle the deck. I won't give anything away this time. Now that I know what Gray is looking for, I seem to do a little better. He loses his other shoe and his socks before I'm stripped of my pants, leaving me sitting in nothing but my underwear. You're getting pretty good at this, Gray compliments me as I deal out another hand. I've got a good teacher, I say in return, flicking my great gaze across the table to find his eyes drifting south of my face and resting on my lacy bra. Hey, eyes up. When I dressed myself to go out earlier this evening, I hadn't expected that anyone would be seeing my underwear. Now I'm glad that I chose to wear one of my nicer sets. Ooh la la, a matching set. As I shuffle the cards and deal them, I notice his gaze falling back on me instead of the cards. And just what do you think you're looking at? I tease him. He gives me an awkward laugh as he clears his throat and picks up his cards. Just admiring that particular shade of pink lace on you, he says wolfishly, and thinking how much better it would look on the floor. My face flushes as we lay down our cards, and I'm sure he can see it spreading across my skin. I'd rather have yours be the one on the floor, I say with a cheeky smile. I think it will take a long time before that happens, he replies, confident he won't lose. I don't need to win to get your clothes off, I say instead. That gets him to momentarily shut up as he clears his throat, unable to focus his eyes anymore. When I study the cards, my insides squeeze nervously. It's not a great hand, but I can't back down either, so I don't fold. I could back out whenever I want to, but I'm beginning to find out I don't want to. When Gray shows his hand, I let out a sigh. Gray has won yet again. What a surprise, I breathe out, my body prickling with warmth despite sitting here half naked. I would say I'm sorry, but I'm really not. Gray looks up and gives me a half-hearted shrug. Determined to wipe the smugness from his face, if only for a little, I keep my eyes on him as I reach back and unclasp the back of my bra, holding it to my chest while I readjust myself. Oops. I always do that every time I start playing again. I always forget that I don't need to I can't hold down shift and take a screenshot. I drop it to the floor and cover my bare chest with my arm, realizing that I'm running dangerously low on clothing items. Now that I've just lost my bra, that leaves me sitting here in only my panties. One more round and this could all be over. I look over at Gray, at how his knuckles are turning white from gripping the pack of cards so tight in his hands, and a small sense of triumph washes over me. Everything okay over there? I taunt him, unable to help myself. I don't miss the way he shifts in his chair, subtly trying to rearrange himself. If that wasn't a dead giveaway, then the pink spreading across his face surely is. You know, I prefer this screenshot. Someone's getting a little too excited. He composes himself quickly enough, his eyes running over my bare skin and making me shiver. Game over, wouldn't you say? He grins. Not quite, I shoot back. Something inside of me wants him to work for that last piece of clothing. He'll have to earn it, fair and square. Gray chuckles and deals the cards once more. I make sure to keep my chest covered, awkwardly picking up my cards with my other hand and instantly feeling my stomach drop. A 3, a 10, and a king. Basically, I've got nothing. The grin that curves Gray's lips is positively sinful, and I want nothing more than to feel it against my own lips. Are they gonna bang? I could fold. Upon looking at my hand, I know that I should, but if I do, that'll only be delaying the inevitable. And by the way Gray is staring at me, I'm not sure I want to delay it much longer. I bet. I look downwards, fully aware that there's only one bet I have left to make. My panties. Ugh, I hate that word. Are you sure you want to do that? Gray asks, his voice softer all of a sudden. It's not too late to back out. I'm sure, I nod with certainty. Gray glances at his cards again, thinking it over. In that case, I bet my shirt and my pants. That's bold of you, I say suspiciously. Something tells me I can take a chance with this round, he grins, leaning back in his chair confidently. I lay down my cards and look over at his, confirming what I already suspected. My hand isn't good enough to beat his, and now he's won the entire game. Is this the sexy music? I can't tell. My eyes are glued to his, my skin prickling against the invisible chill in the air. I think I'm gonna have to edit. What did I tell you? I'm extremely good at this game, he says in a honeyed voice, one that seems to caress my body despite the distance between us. I can see that now. I swallow. Gray stands, his chair scraping against the floor as he pushes it back and circles the table towards me. The smile has dropped from his face, but I still see the remnants of it dancing in his eyes. Stand up. Ugh, get away from me, he orders me quietly. I do as he says, still covering myself with my arms. He's won the game, but to be fair, I wanted him to win. When I lean back against the table, Gray pushes my chair aside and moves in front of me. He gently takes my arms and pulls them away from my chest, staring down at my breast. My nipples peaked against the cool night air. Do I make you nervous? He inches forward, so close I can feel the warmth of his breath on my lips. No, I say truthfully. What do I make you feel? All of my emotions rush up through my skin, flooding me with prickly feelings. As I look up at him, he raises his hand, running his thumb gently across my bottom lip, making me melt. Warm, I say, feeling the heat of his body against my bare skin and wanting so much more of it. As if he's reading my mind, he steps closer, circling an arm around my waist and pulling me against him. Dizzy, I add as he pushes my hair back from my face and my eyes get heavy and half-lidded. When his skin brushes mine, I get this wild tingle that shoots through me straight to my chest. And afraid, I say at last. What are you afraid of? He asks me, his eyebrows dipping in concern. My stomach tightens as the thoughts run through my mind at how it would devastate me if they were true. That you hate me? Now that you know who I really am, I confess in a whisper, who I was. Gray takes my chin between his fingers, tilting my face towards his. I get swept up in the intensity of his gaze as he stares down at me. To be honest with you, I was more afraid that you'd hate me after finding out what I do down here, he admits. That would have killed me. I could never hate you, I reassure him quietly. Oh, alright, well, this is fine. I barely have time to take in a breath before he's kissing me, his fingers threading through my hair to cut the back of my scalp with his hand. Tiny shivers rush through my body, tightening my stomach and curling my toes against the cold basement floor. My skin feels hot and needy. My arms lock around his neck and I pull him closer, needing the gap between us to become non-existent. I moan into his mouth and he pushes his hips into mine, pinning me against the table with his body. His tongue pushes into my mouth, demanding access. I let him take the control he so desperately wants, and he kisses me harder. This is what we've been building up to for weeks now, and the intensity between us is so overwhelming I wonder how we've taken this long to break. Dragging his lips from mine, Gray moves to my neck and my throat, and I groan softly as he kisses his way down my feverish body. I'm gonna stop here. And edit it. Okay, bye. Okay, done. There was no the fuck? There was no CG. Only the kissing one from earlier. Okay, whatever. I think it's good. I think we're good because they're talking about dressing themselves in this one, so I think we're good. Yeah, we'll see. After we've managed to disentangle ourselves from each other, I collect my clothes from the floor, taking my time with dressing myself and enjoying the afterglow that comes from sex. Yeah, he's turned. He's dressed. When I turn back to Gray, I find him watching me with a smile, pulling up his pants, his face flushed in a way that makes me want to do that all over again. What are you looking at? I tease him, pulling up my jeans and buttoning the top. You, he answers with a crooked grin. Before I have a chance to pull on my shirt, he grabs me around the waist, pulling me back against his chest and burying his lips in the curve between my shoulder and neck. I sigh and let my eyes flutter closed, enjoying the warmth of his arms. Okay, we're on chapter 18. So, like, what's gonna go wrong? There has to be another misunderstanding. Like, she's been saying, like, I'm the reason why you're expelled from school. So does that mean he knows that she was the one who called the police as well? So then Ivan has nothing over her? I want to do something, just the two of us, he whispers against my skin between kisses. Will you let me come over and cook for you tomorrow night? Oh my god, he can cook too? Well, what a dream dom. You know how to cook? I tease him, earning a nip of his teeth that makes me giggle and turn around to face him. I'm pretty good in the kitchen, smartass, he says, placing a kiss on the tip of my nose. I bite down on my lip, but I've got zero chances of hiding the smile that breaks across my face. Okay, sure, I'd like that, I nod. Gray pulls me in closer, slipping both of his arms around my waist. I snake my arms around his neck and blink up at him from beneath my lashes. I can hardly believe that the two of us have ended up like this, despite our pasts and the differences we've had to work through, and I'm definitely not complaining. I'm not complaining at all. Alright, we're gonna go in straight into the next one because this is a shorter video because I got rid of I edited down the scene. I hum quietly to myself as I straighten the cushions on the couch, fluffing them up until I'm happy with how they're sitting. Tonight is the first time Gray is coming over since we slept together, and I don't quite know why, but my stomach feels full of butterflies. I tell myself it's normal in this situation. Things are so new between us, especially since he found out the truth of who I really am. The nerves will ease eventually. I've just put on some music when there's a knock on the door, and I take a deep breath as I head over to open it. He's early, but I don't mind. In fact, I'm excited to see him. Oh, hey girl. Surprise! I'm taken aback when I swing the door open to find not Gray, but Sarah grinning back at me. What are you doing here? I frown, only now noticing Jed standing behind her. He gives me a small wave, and by the look on his face, I'm guessing he's been dragged into all of this by my crazy best friend. If that's your version of a warm welcome, I'd hate to see how you greet Gray when he shows up, Sarah tuts as she pushes her way inside. You said Gray was cooking tonight, she elaborates, and now that the two of you are all loved up, what could be better than a double date? We're not official, I point out, smothering a smile of my own, and Gray is cooking dinner for me, not the entire neighborhood. Come on, aren't you happy we stopped by? I sigh at her as she plops down onto the sofa, messing up the cushions I've just straightened and fluffed. I'm always happy to see Sarah, but she knew that Gray and I had plans tonight. Still, it's nice to see that I'm not the only one who's excited about my new relationship with him. If I can call it that. I'm sorry. I told her to ask you instead of just showing up like this, Jed says as the two of us watch her from the doorway. That would have been preferable, I grumble quietly, already mourning my night alone with Gray. Jed gives me an apologetic look as if he read my mind. I'm starting to get the feeling that he's learning quickly how persuasive Sarah can be. How about I grab Sarah and take her out to that new restaurant in town? That way we won't get in your way, he offers. I glance at my best friend, already happily settled on the couch while she flips through her phone, and smile a little. No, it's all right. I wave a dismissive hand, though I appreciate the thought. You're already here. It'd be rude to kick you out now. Here, we brought this. Jed holds up the bottle of wine he's carrying. Thought it might soften the blow a little bit. That definitely helps. I grin in return as I take the bottle and set it aside. I think she just really wanted to check up on you after last night, make sure everything's okay, Jed admits, which has me softening a little more. As you can see, I'm perfectly fine, I say loud enough for Sarah to overhear. This must appease her, because I swear I see her shoulders drop in relief as she sinks down further into the couch. So, what's for dinner? She tosses her phone aside as Jed heads over to her, to join her. No idea. We'll have to ask Gray when he gets here, I start to say. Another knock on the door distracts me from the two of them. If it's not Gray this time, I'm going to be seriously perplexed. Pulling the door open, I thankfully find him standing there, a shopping bag in each hand. I smile at him in relief. I hope you don't mind, but you'll be cooking for 4, I say in greeting, letting him pass through before shutting the door. Gray chuckles softly as he enters, letting me take one of the bags from his hands while he shakes his head at the others. I should have known you two would sneak your way into our date, he jokes. You're lucky I brought extra. See, it all worked out in the end, Sarah declares. I sigh at her, though she only gives me a triumphant smile in return, and Gray and I head to the kitchen. Sorry about them. They just showed up without warning. I start putting the bag I'm holding down on the kitchen counter. Gray follows suit, putting down his bag before wrapping his arms around my waist and pulling me closer. I inhale his scent and relax into him. All of a sudden, the fact that we have 2 unexpected dinner guests doesn't seem to matter as much anymore. Funny how he has that effect on me. I would have liked to have you to myself, but we've got plenty of time for that, Gray teases as he leans in, catching my lips with his. His touch floods my body with warmth, and for a moment I wish we were alone, that we could forget all about dinner and move straight on to other things. No, let's not. I don't want to edit again. Although this is the same video, so I'll just be editing the same video. He kisses me slow and deep for long enough that when we break apart, my head is spinning, my feet trying to remember how to stay flat on the ground. So, what's on the menu tonight? I ask in an attempt to bring myself back down to earth. I can think of one thing I'd like to eat, he growls as he dives into my neck, kissing me all over. Gray, remember we're not alone, I giggle in my attempt to swat him away. He chuckles and pecks me on the tip of my nose before turning back to the shopping bags. Relax, I'm cooking pasta carbonara. He winks. It's an all-family recipe. My face lights up in delight. If there's one thing I love to eat, it's pasta. Do you want any help? I ask as I step up beside him, watching him pull out ingredients for the meal. You could pour the wine, he suggests. With a nod, I grab a few wine glasses from the cupboard, reaching for the bottle that Gray unpacks from the shopping bags. I pour a generous amount in 2 of the glasses, heading out to hand them over to Sarah and Jed. When I return to the kitchen, I fill up the other 2 for Gray and I. Thanks, Gray says as he takes the glass I hand to him. Do you have a large pot? He asks, glancing around the kitchen. Yeah, just in the cupboard down there. I point in the direction of the pots and pans. I lean back against the counter and sip on my wine, watching him work. There's something sexy about watching a man cook, especially one as hot as Gray. What are you smiling at? He asks me after a while. I shake my head and chuckle lightly. It's just funny. I would never have imagined the Phantom standing in my kitchen and cooking me dinner. Well, I never would have imagined wanting to do half the things to the Valkyrie that I've done to you, but here we are, he says wickedly. I blush, thinking of just last night, down in the basement, of his hands all over me and the way he made my body feel. I've thought about it a lot today. Are you sure there's nothing else I can help you with? I ask before I let myself get carried away. Positive, he says with a little laugh. I'm supposed to be cooking for you, remember? Go and relax. I do a double take at that. As someone who's used to doing everything myself, it feels a little strange to leave Gray to do the work while I go and put my feet up. But it looks like he's the boss, at least for tonight. Heading back into the living room, I find Sarah and Jed chatting happily, the radio humming quietly in the background. Kicked him square in the chest and had him sprawled out flat on his back. The guy had to be at least 5 times her size, Sarah is saying to Jed, using her hands to elaborate her story. That's impressive, Jed says in return, his arm draped across the back of the couch in a picture of relaxation. What are you talking about? I ask curiously, sipping on my wine as I hover nearby. I was just telling Jed about the kickboxing competitions you used to enter during school, Sarah explains. And how epic you were, she adds with a grin. I laugh at her description. Sure, I was pretty good at kickboxing back in the day, but I was nothing special. You don't train anymore? Jed turns his head to ask. Not since school, I answer, thinking back on those days at the gym. Jed nods. Why did you stop, if you don't mind me asking? It was my mum's idea for me to start taking classes, for self-defense, I explain. By the time I finished school, I had other things on my mind, like opening the boutique, for instance. That explains how you could hold your own against the Riversiders last night, Jed muses before he turns to Sarah. So what about you? Where did you learn how to fight? He teases her. Sarah raises her fists, pretending to take a fighter's stance against him. Valkii showed me a few tricks, and the rest I picked up on my own, she says playfully. We weren't good little girls staying at home to do our homework during high school, you know. We were out on the streets defending our turf, she boasts. Don't I know it? Jed snorts. Despite that outrageous hairstyle you had back then, that's the first thing I noticed about you. Hey, I was popular at the time, thank you very much. Sarah defends herself. Back me up here, Valkii. I think it suited you, I say with a smile at my friend. See? Thank you for confirming what I already knew, Sarah gloats. We spend some more time talking about high school and the trouble we used to get ourselves into, and by the time I return to check up on Gray, I'm feeling more than a little nostalgic. So when I enter the kitchen, the first thing that hits me is the smell. Cheese, bacon, and fresh herbs. My stomach starts to grumble as I inhale deeply, imagining how much better it's going to taste. That smells really good, I say dreamily, hovering around the stove. Gray chuckles. It's almost ready. Do you have some pasta bowls? The hell is a pasta bowl? Pasta bowl. I kind of want one. How much is this one? Is that for one? Is that for one? £30 for one? What do the reviews say? Nothing. Okay. Sorry, I'm going on a pasta bowl. Those are from Sainsbury's, but like... Plus delivery. That's a nice one, though. I'll think about it. Okay, back to the game. Sorry about that. Just went shopping for a second. I grab a few large bowls and some cutlery, and then refill our wine glasses before while Gray is serving up. We take everything out to the dining table and order Jed and Sarah to sit down and tuck in. Looks like you've got yourself a keeper, Valkii. Why are you saying that in quotes? Sarah teases as she takes the seat across from me, her wide eyes taking in the spread Gray has cooked up. If only you could lend Jed some of your cooking skills, she sighs. Hey, my cooking's not that bad, Jed protests. Sarah smirks as she leans towards me, a single eyebrow arched in amusement. He made me spaghetti and meatballs when we first started dating. The pasta was half cooked and the meatballs had lumps of flour in them. It's the thought that counts, Jed pouts, earning a kiss on the cheek from Sarah. I smile at them both. I'm glad that they've decided to show up, even if I was hesitant at first. Sarah offers me a slice of the crusty bread she's just cut into, and when our eyes meet, our lips tilting into twin smiles, I know exactly what she's thinking. Not in a million years would we have ever thought we'd be sitting at my dinner table with the leader of the Da Capo gang and his best friend. 10 years ago, even a month ago, the thought would have been absurd. Yet here we are, and I can't remember a time when I was happier. Oof, that's a red fucking flag that things aren't going to go well. I eye the food in front of me and breathe it in, ready to get stuck in. Everything looks amazing. As predicted, the first mouthful has me sighing in contentment. It's really good. I'll take that as the sign that you like it, Gray grins. It's amazing, I say wistfully. We all finish our meal together, chatting, laughing, and drinking the entire time. When we've thoroughly cleaned our plates, Sarah and Jed head into the kitchen to do the washing up, while Gray and I move to the couch together. My head is buzzing from the wine. After finishing both the bottles Gray and Jed had brought over, we had dug out another one from my kitchen. Despite that, I'm feeling so full and content that nothing could be more perfect than this moment right now. Gray sits close while I curl my legs up on the couch and get comfortable. He still smells good. He always smells good. And the scent only makes my head spin more. After speaking so much about high school with Sarah and Jed earlier, it made me think of Gray and what happened to him back then. Jed hadn't said much about it, but it seems like now is a good time as any to bring it up. What happened after you got arrested that night back in school? You just disappeared, I ask slowly, wondering if Gray will talk to me about such things. He stays quiet for a moment, as though thinking it through. I left town. I went to stay with some relatives outside the city and worked in their business for a bit, he explains. I took a pretty low blow when I was expelled, but spending some time away from everything was good for me. You didn't miss it? The city? I ask. Sure, I missed certain things. Jed most of all, he grins. So, how did you end up working with Ivan? I continue. I assumed the two of you hated each other back then. I ran into Ivan soon after I returned to the city. I was tired of all the fighting by then. I had no interest in returning to all that, so we started working together instead, Gray continues. In the beginning, we were running a small betting ring, taking a cut of the profits. Soon, more and more people were coming to us, wanting in on the action. We figured we had a pretty good thing going, but we also had the means to make it even better. One thing led to another, and poker became our thing. I found this place by accident. It was abandoned at the time, he says. You never wanted to do anything else? Find a different kind of job? I ask, aware that I'm asking too many questions, but still curious nonetheless. You mean a job that's not illegal? He chuckles. Maybe. Although I'm not sure what skills I'd have to offer besides the ones I've picked up while working with Ivan, he adds. I don't know, you seem like a capable businessman. Maybe you'll think of something along those lines, I suggest. He smiles at the thought, but says nothing more on the topic. What about you? What did you do after the academy? He asks after a few moments. I was totally fixated on opening my own boutique, I say. I studied fashion and learned a little about the business side of things. When my grandma passed away, she left me a small inheritance. That was enough to help me get this place set up. I gesture below me to the boutique a level below us. So you're living your dream? Gray asks. Yeah, I am, I say with a smile. I'm happy for you, he says genuinely, taking my hand in his. My breath catches in my throat when he leans forward, his gaze flicking towards my lips as he lifts a hand to my face. When he kisses me, I melt, letting my eyelids flutter closed as I lose myself in him. All right, lovebirds, we're out of here, Sarah interrupts as she waltzes back into the living room. Gray and I pull apart abruptly, an equally guilty smile plastered on both our faces. Thanks for having us, Jed says as I walk them to the door. Food was great, as usual, he adds with a wink at Gray. After saying goodnight to the two of them and seeing them out the door, the atmosphere in the room changes. Oh, let's not bang again, okay? Now, finally, Gray and I are alone, and for the first time since our escapade down in the basement. Gray seems to be thinking much the same thing. Taking me by the hand, he leads me back towards the couch where we sit together, even closer this time. Thank you for tonight. Dinner was delicious. I speak first, feeling those familiar butterflies flitter back into my stomach. Well, I had to impress you somehow, just in case last night didn't do the trick. Gray jokes. Just putting that out there again. I bite down on my lips as I giggle. I think at this point he can consider me thoroughly impressed. I went to my doctor to get tested today, by the way. I'm just waiting on the results, I tell him. I thought it might be a good idea for when I'm ready to go further with you. What are you talking about? You went further with him. Unless you're talking about, like, not wearing a condom, but you should still get tested even if you wear a condom. I mean, if we're planning on keeping this going, I add quickly, feeling my face go warm at the assumption. I was planning on doing the same thing. Seems like we're on the same page. Gray grins as he leans in closer. Will you stay tonight? I whisper before his lips meet mine, seeing them tilt in amusement. I'll stay, Gray says, his breath warm on my skin, but don't go getting any wild ideas. Why not? I ask, feeling hazy from both his scent and the lingering effects of the wine I'd drunk. Gray brushes a few strands of hair away from my face, his touch sending a shiver straight through me. He cups the side of my face, his thumb running over my lower lip while his eyes lock mine in place. Because it's getting late. And okay, so that is a thing they definitely did, but I don't understand why she would say take things further. And when I fuck you again, I want to take my time with you, he says, quietly seductive. And I'll need you to be level-headed enough to appreciate every single drop of pleasure I'm going to give you, he adds with a small smirk. You should get some sleep before you have to get up for work, he murmurs. What if I don't want to sleep? I ask, my breath catching when his gaze drops to my mouth. He pushes his thumb into my mouth and I close my lips around it, sucking gently and teasing the tip with my tongue. Oh, come on, guys. Turn it off for a second. A soft growl escapes him, coming from somewhere deep in his chest. You make it incredibly hard to be good, he whispers, his voice coming out hoarse. All I'm hearing is that I make you incredibly hard, I tease him with a knowing look. That too, he grins and adjusts the way he's sitting, confirming my point. Pushing myself up from the couch, I sink to my knees in front of him, the smile on my face nothing short of sinful. God damn it. Okay, bye. Goodbye. Unless he stops it. There are plenty of other ways I can think of to have fun, I say wickedly. Bye. Goodbye. Maybe. Setting my hands on his knees, I'm positioning myself between his legs, running my hands up his thighs and delighting in the way his eyes go dark as he watches me. Nope. Bye. Okay, I think we're done. Jesus Christ. I actually skip a lot of it because the, I don't enjoy the dynamic. But people who like a more dominant man would like it, so go buy his plus content and play through it if you want. Gray takes my hand and lifts me up, wrapping an arm around my waist and pulling me in for an intimate embrace. His lips hover near the tip of my ear. I'll take all I can get, he whispers before he kisses me deeply. I let out a tiny sigh of pleasure as I get lost in his caring kiss. Afterwards, I happily do as Gray orders, and the two of us head to bed for some much-needed rest. I fall asleep in his arms, lulled into dreams by his familiar scent and the safety that I feel whenever I'm with him. Who would have thought that my old rival, the one who threatened so much of my existence back in high school, would now be the one that I'm falling for? Girl, come on. After closing up the store the next day, I head down to the basement in search of Gray. I find him there alone, wiping down the table in the middle of the room and rearranging the chairs. Hey, he says. He looks up as I enter, giving me a smile. Hi. I hesitate in the doorway a moment. Why are you looking at me like that? He smirks, cocking his head to the side. I blow out a breath, hesitating for a moment. There's something I've been thinking about all day, but I'm not sure how he'll react to it. I was wondering if I could sit in on the game tonight, I say, biting the bullet. You know, a real game this time, just to check it all out. Are you sure you want to do that? He asks, his eyebrows dipping in the middle. Yes, I assure him. He thinks for a moment before giving a sharp nod of his head. All right, come on in, he says. I let out a relieved breath as I head into the room, jumping straight into helping Gray get everything ready for the night. You need to put in money. You don't play without putting in money. A short while later, the first of the players start to arrive, and soon enough the room is full of them. Hey guys, most of you will remember Valkii, Gray announces as we take a seat at the table together. I recognize Jed, of course, and a few other familiar faces from the Dragon Den game. Now that I know it was all an act, I feel a bit silly for having fallen for it, but I put on a brave face nonetheless. Oh, right, one of the guys says as recognition dawns on his face. Here for another game of, Dungeon Den? Jed gives him a solid nudge on the shoulder. It's Dragon Den, you nitwit. And if that's what we were pretending to play, you would have already spoiled it. He gives me an apologetic smile, one that I have little trouble reciprocating as I'm still feeling like a bit of an idiot. It's alright, I know about everything, I say, giving Gray a look. Gray told me what really goes on down here. Before I've even finished my sentence, every pair of eyes in the room snaps towards the door behind me. Did he now? And I suppose next he'll be wanting to cut you into the business as well. A deep voice booms from the doorway, and I don't have to turn to know that Ivan has just arrived.
Oh.
Although I have to admit, you'd make a pretty cute barmaid. Fetch me a drink, will you, sweetheart? Or here's the sexism. Get your own drink, I snark at him. Ivan sneers at me in return. So if you're not a barmaid, then why are you here? If that ever becomes your business, then I'll be sure to let you know, I say from between gritted teeth. Perhaps you're our entertainment for the evening, he says lightly. If you are, I'd say you're a little overdressed, sweetheart. I was gonna say, Gray? Where are you, bitch? Alright, that's enough. Gray intercedes with a growl before I can launch myself across the table at Ivan. Ivan chuckles out loud as he rounds the table and finds a seat, looking nothing short of smug. Relax, everyone's so tense in here tonight, he croons. Let's just get started, Gray says coldly as he shuffles a little closer to me. Gray gets the game started, and I watch as he deals out the cards and everyone makes their bets using little plastic chips that they've purchased with real money. I sit back and try to keep from distracting the players, knowing that I'm simply here to observe. Oh, okay, she's just observing. One person in particular, however, is making that extremely difficult. I can feel Ivan's eyes on me the entire time, and even when I catch him staring at me, he doesn't look away. He simply smiles that unnerving smile of his, one that leaves me unsure as to what he's up to or what he could be planning. I do my best to ignore him, focusing on the game in front of me instead. So, what do you think? Gray whispers in my ear after the first round. I watch him take back the cards from the table and shuffle them between his hands with ease. It seems similar enough to what we played the other night, just with more cards, I observe. Gray nods. Pretty much, yeah, although more cards also mean more ways to win. He deals out the cards between the players with impressive speed. It's obvious that he has plenty of experience as a dealer. You also have to know how to read people, he adds. Like I told you the other night during our game, some people are easier to read than others. I suddenly blush when I think about how that game had ended and how the two of us had ended up having sex right on top of this table. That's right, they did. Luckily, we cleaned it well, but I'd be mortified if any of the guys ever found out. The next round commences, and the longer I watch the game in front of me, the more I have trouble trying to understand what is so bad about it. I understand that the illegal part of it is the money, and that is put into the what the fuck? I understand that the illegal part of it is the money that is put into and won from the games, but it doesn't seem so bad to me. This round ends quickly, and the winner takes his earnings, getting ready for the next hand. From what I've gathered in the past, these games can sometimes run until the early hours of the morning, although Gray has always made sure they didn't keep me from getting any sleep.
Ah.
So, Valkii, are you going to play with us? Jed asks, drawing my attention to him. You've got to pay for a seat at this table, or are we changing up the rules for every pretty girl who walks in here? Ivan interrupts from across the table, his fists clenched into a ball as he glares at us. He doesn't seem happy with the thought of me playing, and even though I have no desire to throw my money away on gambling, I can't help but to press his buttons. I might be interested. What's the cost to play? I inquire, giving Ivan a pointed look and watching his scowl deepen. Absolutely not, Gray says firmly, his tone low and dangerous. Gray, I was just kidding. It's not funny. He cuts me off with a growl as he deals the cards out to the others. Excuse me? Why are you yelling at me? I sit back in my seat, startled by his reaction. It's rare that I hear Gray take that kind of tone with anyone. Tension hangs in the air, and I notice how the players shift in their seats uncomfortably, all but Ivan, who sits back in his seat, grinning smugly. The atmosphere in the room has changed considerably. I'm not sure that this is the best place for me to be right now, stuck between the two former leaders of my rival gangs. I should probably go, I speak after a moment, standing quickly and brushing the wrinkles from my clothes. I've seen enough of the game to know how I feel about it, and now it seems best if I leave before things get even worse between Ivan and Gray. Sweet dreams, the Valkyrie. Ivan waggles his fingers at me, the trademark grin creeping back onto his face. Nice try, Novak. I already know all about that. Gray seethes, clearly unimpressed by the other man's display. Oh, all of it? Ivan asks sweetly. Yes, all of it, I say between gritted teeth, feeling the bitterness of the lie linger in my mouth. But you said you got him expelled. I'm confused. Ivan makes a gesture to signal his mouth is shut before sitting back in his chair. I turn to Gray, taking note of the set of his shoulders, the tightness in his jaw. Good night then, I say, earning barely more than a nod in response. You don't need to take it out on me, Jesus Christ. The rest of the table bids me good night as I leave the basement, and I hear them getting into the next round when I shut the door behind me. As I climb the stairs to my home, I can't help but think that I said something wrong back there, that Gray was just as mad at me as he was at Ivan. I understand that Gray probably wants to keep me out of any trouble associated with their poker games in case it jeopardizes my business, but I also feel that it's a little late for that. Just knowing that these games are taking place down in the basement is enough to implicate me, and if anyone cares to investigate, my name will be thrown into the mix as the owner of this building. I suddenly feel uncomfortable. Alright, I'll see you in the next one.